Hi there, my name is Brian Collins from becomeawritertoday.com, and in this short video book review I want to talk about one of the most famous writing books of all time. It's called On Writing by Stephen King, a memoir of the craft, and this book was published in 1999. And whatever type of writer you are, whether you write fiction or whether you write non-fiction like me, you'll find this book a great insight into the craft and into how a master like Stephen King works. Now, the book is broken into 5 parts. In the first part, Stephen King offers his CV, or at least how it looked back in 1999, and he goes through his backstory. He talks about how he became a writer, he talks about his family life, and he talks about meeting his wife. And I particularly enjoyed this part because he describes writing his first book, Carrie. And he says that he was riddled with self-doubt while writing this book and he just didn't think it was any good. So when he was finished the manuscript, he just threw it in the bin and he was nearly ready to give up. But then his wife fished Carrie out of the bin, read through the manuscript, and then told Stephen that yes, you've got something here, you should stick with this book, you should stick with writing, and that's what Stephen did. Now, in part 2 of the book, Stephen King explains what writing is, and he says it's a bit like telepathy, in that you've got to communicate your ideas and your stories through your mind to your readers. And it's just like Stephen to use a kind of a supernatural idea to explain what writing is. And he also urges writers, whatever type of writers they are, to take the craft seriously. And I think that's great advice. In part 3 of the book, Stephen King writes about his toolbox and the toolbox that other writers should have. What does he mean by a toolbox? Well, he gets into grammar, he gets into the active voice, and he provides lots of examples of how to do both when you're telling stories. And I also thought this particular part of the book was a great compliment to other writing books like Strunk and White's Elements of Style. Part 4 of the book is quite a long part. Stephen King gets into the process behind writing his books like The Stand. And as a writer, it's always fascinating to hear about another writer's workflow and processes, particularly someone like Stephen King. He talks about how to work with editors, which could be a struggle if you're writing a book for the first time. And he explains how he did research. He even talks about going around with the police in his local area to find out what it was like. And he talks about whether writing classes are any good, and he's a bit doubtful about them, but he doesn't dismiss them altogether. And then he explains how to get published, or at least how to get published back in 1999, because I think that was a time before many authors were able to self-publish on Amazon. And he also provides some practical writing tips, such as this gem: the road to hell is paved with adverbs. And perhaps one of the most famous quotes from the book: write with the door closed, rewrite with the door open. In part 5 of the book, Stephen King tells the story of an accident he had in 1999. He was out walking around Maine when Brian Smith came up a hill driving a light blue Dodge van, and he drove into Stephen and knocked him down. And Stephen was so badly injured that the doctors didn't think he'd make it. 4 of his ribs were broken, his spine was chipped in 8 places, and his hip was fractured. And it took him many months to recover and to get back writing. And Stephen takes us through all this step by step. So I think this book is a Bible for writers of all types, whatever it is that you're going to write or whatever it is you want to achieve on the blank page. In fact, what I'd say to you is to buy this book and to read it, but also Stephen has an audiobook that's available on Audible and he narrates it himself, and it's fascinating to hear him actually talk through the different events in the book. So if you found this video review interesting, please let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.